There we go.
You got it.
Perfect.
Okay. Oh, yes, perfect. Okay, good. I did get that. So just want to make sure that everyone is aware that it is being recorded before we get started. So thank you, Kate, for getting that recording started. I would like to thank everyone for attending. I know that everyone's time is precious and individuals are busy. So today we're here to talk a little bit about the National Nurse Practitioner regulatory model and kind of how that's moving forward in New Brunswick. I am presenting today with Janet Fogarty. So Janet is our Director of Registration and Deputy Registrar, and Sylvie Moret. So Sylvie Moret is a nurse consultant here at NationalNP, and she's also a nurse practitioner. And for those of you online who don't know me, I am Kate Shepard. I am the CEO of NationalNP, proud nurse of 26 years, and just recently in my role officially for the last few months. So again, I appreciate everyone taking the time to connect with us today. So before getting started, would like to acknowledge that NationalNP's offices are located on the traditional territory of the Wet'suwet'en, and that all NationalNP interactions take place on the unsurrendered and unceded lands of the Wet'suwet'en, Mi'kmaq, Passamaquoddy, as outlined in the Treaties of Peace and Friendship. So the purpose of today's session is just to communicate some regulatory changes in relationship to the National Nurse Practitioner Regulatory Model, most specifically in relationship to changes to NP education and NP registration. And then provide an opportunity to ask some questions. Presentation's short. We'll probably, chat for 10 minutes or so. But again, it's a really small group, so we do really welcome questions. There will be time at the end. But if you have questions as we move forward in our slides, please feel free just to raise a hand. And Heather, yeah, absolutely. We'll probably put, I saw there was a question there in the chat, put the slides and a recording available after. All right, and I'm going to pass it over to Sylvie.
So basically, the nurse practitioners have been educated across Canada by client population, including family, all ages, primary care, adult, pediatric, and neonatal. So approximately 80% of nurse practitioners practice in the family of all ages category. That's where we see the most of them. There's still a 20% of nurse practitioners that is providing population-focused care to adult, pediatric, neonatal population. So most jurisdictions license or will register the NPs by category of practice or specialty in accordance with their population focus, like NP adult, NP pediatric, NP primary care. So here we see in the table the category of practice and licensing practice across Canada, provinces, and territory prior to the implementation of the nurse practitioner regulatory model. For us, as you can see in New Brunswick, our category of practice and educational program are with family of all ages. So it will not change much in regards to how our licensing will be, but there's other provinces where they have those specialty. So the nurse practitioner regulatory regulation framework implementation plan project, short-term NPR, FIP, initiated in 2020 by the Canadian Council of Registered Nurse Regulators, CCRNR, lead the implementation of a new national regulatory model for nurse practitioners across Canada. In this regulatory model, the NPs are educated and licensed to practice across the client's lifespan, all ages, and across healthcare practice settings. NP university education programs with a population or a setting focus, including family, all ages, primary care, adult, or pediatric, are being phased out or updated based on the revised NP entry-level competencies. So in New Brunswick, both University of the Moncton and University of New Brunswick, the NP education program have been updated to reflect the revised NP ELCs and began offering their revised program in September 2024. So NPs graduating from these programs will be educated with fundamental knowledge, skills, and judgment that prepare them for practice across the continuum of care, clients' lifespan, and clients' population and practice settings. So NPs who have completed a family all ages program are considered to meet the competencies of the NP's practice across the lifespan and clients in all practice settings. Current NP registrants will be transitioned to the new framework without having to complete further education, examination, or training, and continue to work within the current education, training, and competence, and maintain their competency by participating in the NANB Continuance Competency Program. With the National NP regulatory model, the regulators will register new NPs and current NPs educated and licensed in category of practice, family all ages, adult, pediatric, or neonatal, under a common title. It has been determined that the NPs across Canada will have the protected title of nurse practitioner or NP. So, Janet, I will let you continue on.
Thank you, Sylvie. Up until recently, only NPs that had graduated from an approved family all ages program from an approved School of Nursing in Canada were eligible for registration in NB. With the new national model for NP regulation and modification of NANB rules, Canadian NPs that have been educated and that are currently registered with the adult, pediatric, or neonatal categories of practice in another Canadian province or territory will be eligible to register and permitted to practice in New Brunswick. However, the practice of these NPs will be limited to their client population. These NPs will be registered under the same protected title of nurse practitioner. However, in the interest of public protection, it was deemed important to inform the public, employers, and other healthcare providers when the practice of an NP is limited to a specific client population. Therefore, a restriction will be placed on the registration of NPs with the adult, pediatric, or neonatal categories of practice, limiting their authority to practice to the client population related to those specialty areas. This information will appear on the NP's registration status that is available in the NANB Public Registry. The rule changes will not change the NP's accountability to practice within scope and competence as set out in the standards of practice for NPs. This is an example of what we will see when we look at the NANB Public Registry. The arrow points to the specified category. This person is an NP with adult restrictions. If an NP with a restricted registration to practice with a specific client population was interested in transition from a specialty area of practice to practice across all client population, NANB would assess the NP's education and competencies and determine what education would be required to support the transition and ensure competent NP practice with clients of all ages across the lifespan. NANB and other jurisdictions continue to have discussions with academic partners about opportunities for NP bridging programs.
So the nursing regulators do not and have never regulated specialty practice or specializations for NPs. Historically, regulators have regulated entry to practice for NPs by categories or protected titles defined by the patient's population in which they practice. Continuing competencies and access to specialized nursing care are of utmost importance to ensuring access to quality nursing care. After entering practice, an NP may still choose to pursue additional specialization, which may be obtained through formal courses, experience, continuing education, and others opportunities. All NPs are accountable for ensuring they have the knowledge, skill, and judgment to provide care in their chosen practice area. The Board of Directors approved changes to the NANB rules to allow for the restricted registration of NPs with a category of practice in New Brunswick back in March 2025. NANB registered the first NP with a restriction related to a category of practice in April 2025. Each Canadian regulator body has considered option approved by the CCRNR board to transition to one NP registration category. The activity changes required and timing will differ in each provinces and territory as each regulatory body is working within legislative and regulatory context. It is expected that all jurisdictions will have transitioned to the new NP regulatory model by 2026. So we are going to take a few questions. If your questions are not addressed when the session ends, please feel free to send us your question. You can send us an email to practiceconsultation@nanb.nb.ca, and we will try to answer your questions. So does anybody have any questions?